We have suffered, but we will regain our glory.
Can you beat Fallout New Vegas using only Chance's knife? What does this mean exactly, and what will need to be done in this challenge run? First and most obvious, I will need to only use Chance's knife to kill enemies, meaning I will be passive without the knife. Second, I will need to help out the Great Khans as much as possible. And third, I'll be doing an independent ending as there's no ending related to the Great Khans in the game. So with all little explanation out of the way, let's begin this challenge run. Beginning the challenge run, I wake up in Doc Mitchell's house and provide Doc my name. Since I'll be using Chance's knife, I name myself Guarantee because I don't take any chances. I then walk over to the tester to begin to assign some special stats. I do a good strength build with 9 strength for melee damage, 9 endurance for extra health to stay alive while charging on people with actual weapons, and standard intelligence and agility, and finally 10 luck for extra crit hits for more damage. I then go on to answer some random questions and finally get to select my tag skills. I choose melee weapons, speech, and survival since Khans seem to be good at living off the land and thriving in the harshest of environments. For my traits, I keep it basic and choose Wild Wasteland and Skilled, and the next thing I do is go through Doc's house and attempt to repair the 9mm SMG to sell it for caps, but I'm too stupid, and then try to make some chems, but I'm also too stupid for that as well. Angry at my lack of competence, I raid Doc Mitchell's house with all of his items and make my way outside. Now, outside the general store, I loot up all the sarsaparilla for some free healing and head inside the store to sell all of Doc's books and belongings. I also take this opportunity to buy a shovel, which I'll need to get my hands on Chance's knife. I then make my way up to the cemetery and start robbing all the graves while also making sure to grab the snow globe. Now, with a shovel in hand, it was time to make my way to Chance's grave, which is conveniently located north of Goodsprings, surrounded by cazadors. Luckily for me, my Lord and Savior Victor Wembanyama is here to save me from the first group of flying devils, and I continue on. I crouch my way there, hugging the cliffside and keeping high ground where the cazadors can't reach me, and it's a pretty successful strategy, until one of them climbs up and hits me hard from behind. Pause. So I then make a run for the grave to have a chance of getting the knife and being able to fight back. Luckily for me, the small drop down confused the game's 13-year-old AI, and I was able to loot the gravestone in peace, acquiring the knife and some con armor so I can fit in. By crouching behind the gravestone, I also become hidden, and I'm now able to fast travel back to Goodsprings and begin the run for real. I head back to Goodsprings and talk to the Sunny Smiles to begin the tutorial quest. The quest only lasts 15 seconds because I require a gun to shoot the bottles, and knifing has no effect. So I go to Chet and sell the varmint rifle off as well as the ammo and make my way to Goodsprings Schoolhouse for some XP and skill magazines. I take out all the bugs and loot up a couple magazines and then go for the safe. Unfortunately for me, my character has no skills besides using a knife and cannot hack or lockpick the safe for any loot. With this, my time in Goodsprings is up and I make my way east towards Sloan and stop by the abandoned shack along the way and the Yangtze Memorial for some extra loot. I make my way to Sloan without any trouble from the Rad Scorpions, but I accidentally caused my own trouble at Sloan as I'm wearing Chance's con armor. With this armor on, the NCR-controlled Sloan begins to attack me on sight, leaving me no choice but to show what this knife is capable of. I use the building and bait the workers to push me, and come around the corner where I can spam that attacks and quickly take them out. Unfortunately, during this huge scuffle, even Snuffles fell victim to my knife, with his head still rolling around to this very day. I decided that I've already done enough slaughter that I might as well take out anybody inside the building as well. I head inside to one of the bunk rooms and find my hardest challenge yet, a blue-collared quarry worker with a piece of metal pipe. Proves to be very skillful in 1v1 encounters and blocks most of my attacks, and follows with a hasty counter-attack right after. If it wasn't for the Pip-Boy's time-freezing technology, allowing me to consume some healing items, he would have had me for sure. He must have been some boss enemy because he also gave me a lot of XP for a level up. With this, I get melee weapons to 50, allowing me for full use of the knife, medicine to 40, and some speech. I also get a perk which I put into Old World Gourmet, giving me extra health from food and alcohol. Now, with level ups out of the way, I show my distaste towards Sloan by also ripping apart their generator for some scrap metal and stealing all the caps in the office building. And to make sure there are no witnesses, I head into the restaurant and remove any living life in there as well.
Come on.
In the process, I loot a knife and realizes that Chance's knife is actually a combat knife, meaning that repairing it just became 10 times harder. Anyways, with Sloan taken care of, I head through Hidden Valley, taking care of the Bark Scorpions and passing through to Neil's shack, where I promptly ignore his warning of danger and go sneak past a patrol of super mutants, and then run up a hill of bear traps and falling rocks. With this, I make it into the mountains and backtrack to the Dorado power station to mark it for later, as well as hit up Vault 11 for some XP for discovering it as well. I then make my way to the 188 trading post and buy all the slop and shops mac and cheese. With my stomach full and back, I continue my journey back to the strip, discovering the Followers Outpost, NCR Sharecropper Farms, and the Gunrunners along the way. Finally make my way to the gate and enter the hood, and to assert my dominance in the area, I get into a knife fight with Dixon and one of his goons. I get a good couple slices on them, causing them to flee, but I make sure to chase down Dixon, even taking off my armor for some extra movement speed, eventually catching him behind the bus stop and taking care of him. I then rob him of his shitty drugs and go to sell them to Mick and Rouse. Per usual for these challenge runs, I also kill the rat for the kid running around Freeside, but for some reason he doesn't want to eat it today.
Thanks, mister.
Continuing my journey around Freeside, I make my way to the Mormon Fort and loot up the snow globe in the building. Now it was time to make some money. Instead of gambling for money with my 10 luck, for some reason I decided to do some quests instead and go debt collecting for the Garrett twins. First I go after the Ghoul Grex and take his payment, and then punch Santiago in his face for some money. After talking to him, some guy calls me over to the alley with urgency. With a certainty that nothing bad ever happens in these types of places, I make my way down the alley where he points me to a body. Unfortunately for me, these scientists are collecting human bodies to do some research for the better of mankind, and I need to be a sacrifice. Although their cause may be noble, I had to make a hard decision between donating my body to science or self-defense, and I chose, well, self-defense. These may be smart, kind, young gentlemen, but I better them in combat and slice them up easily. Now, back to my quest. The final person I need to collect caps from is Lady Jane, and she says all her valuables are with some caravan. And when I try to speak to her again, she disrespects me, so I put an end to her life. Unfortunately, this does not progress the quest, but what I do realize is that I don't actually have to turn in the caps, so with this, I have enough to pass the credit check into the strip. So I say goodbye to those brokies in Freeside and make my way in, instantly being greeted by Victor, telling me to go to the Lucky 38. I don't let robots tell me what to do, so instead I head over to the tops to take care of Benny. I walk in to discover his location, grants me a bunch of XP, and more importantly, a level up, which allows me to get my speech to 30. In addition, for no real particular reason, I decide to get the Cannibal perk since I never take it and I wanted to join the White Gloves in this playthrough. With the 30 speech, I talk to Swank and convince him to let me have my weapons, and I walk right up to Benjamin. I let him convince me to talk to him in private, where I lied and agreed and started attacking him right in the open instead. I use a couple VATS attacks to start the fight and then start slashing like crazy, which is far more effective, and Chance's knife easily cuts through his checkered suit. I also realize that I'm wearing no armor, so I throw on some NCR gear to clean up the rest of the goons. I then looted Benny from the Platinum Chip, his suit, and his gun to sell for caps later. With business concluded, I head out and run into Volpez, who lets me know Caesar Salad wants to get to know me better and has given me his mark. I ignore Caesar's lustful desires and head over to the White Gloves to put my Cannibal perk to use. I head in and hand over my weapons and look for Mortimer to talk to him about our unique taste and cravings.
Good. And you know what it is to be discreet in matters of nutrition.
I use my Cannibal perk to get myself involved and start to support the cause. He tells me I need to go down and talk to the kid who was accidentally captured and either kill him or get him to leave with his father peacefully. But then I get stuck in an infinite loading screen and I have to close my game. Classic Fallout New Vegas. After a clean boot of the game, I head down into the kitchen and even loot some of the sarsaparilla bottles they have laying around. I continue down into the basement and get a nice swig of water to heal myself up. With sarsaparilla stealing and drinking all their sink water completed, I make my way to Ted Gunderson and free him from his freezer. How does somebody even get captured in a freezer? It has free in the name, so just get free? I don't understand you, Ted. Anyway, I have a discussion with him and I fail to convince him to not retaliate against the people who captured him, obviously. So I'm forced to put him down. Now, if you have a keen eye, or can just see it all, or if you haven't fallen asleep by this point, you can see that I zoned out and did not use Chance's knife. At the time, I didn't even realize this, but don't worry, we will be back here real soon, so the challenge hasn't quite failed yet. trust me. Progressing the quest, I take Ted's blood and smear it all around his father's penthouse, framing him for the murder of his own son. His guards definitely saw me do this and are spraying shotguns at me as I do it, but the game doesn't care because I did a good job. With the framing complete and my body full of buckshot, I go outside to report Heck Gunderson to a Securitron to arrest him. Here's how the conversation went.
Heck Gunderson.
What in blazes? That's my son you're talking about. He ain't dead. I'm looking for him.
It is my duty to inform you that murder is a serious crime. As a murderer, you should be feeling emotions such as guilt, sorrow, and shame. If not, you may wish to consult a mental health professional.
Where's my son? What'd you do with my boy?
I hope this experience has taught you an important lesson about the value of human life.
You can't do this to me. This is a mistake.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
The hell I will.
Stand back, citizens. Deceased bodies are a known source of illness and a potential tripping hazard.
With Heck dead, it's time to cook up Ted and make a delicious meal out of him. I report back to Mortimer after 7 o'clock dinner, and he tells me that everybody loved Ted's meat. Unfortunately, I also realized that 10 minutes ago, I chopped down Ted Gunderson with a cattle prod and not Chance's knife. So I reloaded the save and did it the right way this time. I'm back in the freezer with Ted, and I need to try and pass the speech check to do it the right way. So the first thing I do is put on Benny's suit, which gives me 5 speech, but I still need another 3 points. I search around the kitchen, find all sorts of alcohol that I attempt to use, but that leaves me 1 point short. Out of ideas, I try to push him into the hallway, or maybe a guard will attack him. After spending a couple minutes pushing him, this is also a failure. I even make him engage in combat, but the guard starts running for some reason. So I now look for any sort of drugs or anything to boost my charisma. I start pickpocketing gamblers, but they have every drug that helps anything but speed. But I did think of one last thing: the magazine vending machines out in the street that have a random chance of giving me a Meeting People magazine. I looted the only 3 that I had not looted yet, and on the final machine, I get a Meeting People in suspenseful fashion. Back in the kitchen, I use the magazine and finally convince Ted to not attack anybody here and leave with his father peacefully. Now, with Ted gone, we need a meal replacement, so Mortimer gives me whereabouts of some guy living outside of Vegas that I can knock out. I use my medicine skill to make himself pass out, and then I drag his body over to the dumpster. I report back to Mortimer and wait for the banquet to finish and ask how it went. For some reason, he calls me a backstabber, despite the fact that I'm now idolized by the White Gloves, and the banquet never begins. Anyway, my job is done with these tweakers, so I move on to the Lucky 38 to return the platinum chip to Mr. House. I head inside and talk to the Marilyn Monroe of robots and give her my snow globes for some easy caps. I then move on to the giant TV screen, which is Mr. House. Come to think of it, Mr. House might be the first VTuber, as he fits all the criteria, such as actually being a really old, wrinkly guy underneath that pretty face.
Ah! What the fuck? My brother, what the fuck?
Anyway, he rewards me by giving him the platinum chip by allowing me to view the dreadful Securitron demonstration. Pissed at Mr. House for making me sit still for more than 30 seconds with no Subway Surfers or Reddit stories over Minecraft parkour, I decided to end his life. So I hack the terminals and run past all his guards straight down the elevator, and then take out Chance's knife and give him a couple stabs, ending Mr. House's 100-year-long subathon. With the world's oldest streamer out of the picture, I decided to meet up with my secret admirer, Caesar. So I backtrack from the Dorado substation, discovering locations such as Helios 1, Gibson Scrapyard, and Novak. While at Novak, I make sure to loot up all the scrap metals for the boomers later on. Also discover Mr. Radical's corpse, surrounded by some geckos, which are easily chopped up by the knife. With distractions aside, I finally make my way to Cottonwood Cove and head over to the dock to start the journey on a floating 2x4. At the fort, I hand over my weapons and make my way up the hill to Caesar's tent and talk to the man himself. As he does, he glazes me and my accomplishments, and after buttering me up, he sends me down to the secret shed where the platinum chip can unlock the vault. I head down there and start taking out all the protectrons and sprinting straight at the turrets. Final room did give me some troubles as well, as there are 3 turrets I need to rush with a knife, but luckily I managed to stay alive. Disregarding Caesar's orders, I actually power up the Securitrons for an independent ending later on. On the way out, I also make sure to loot up all the scrap metal, which will make sure I get idolized by the Boomers. I return back to Caesar, and he said he felt the ground shake a while ago, meaning that I probably did my job. If only he sent down a guard there to actually check, he would realize that I compromised his entire location with an army of Securitrons. But that's too much work for the brain tumor having Caesar. For now, I leave Caesar to never see him again, and make my way towards my people in Red Rock Canyon, the Great Khan. Along the way, I run into some fire geckos, which Chance's knife easily takes care of. I also find a location called Chance's map, and the story behind it is that a group of Great Khans, including Jessup, McMurphy, and Chance, were waiting to meet with their employer for a job they were hired for. McMurphy passed the time by drawing a crude map of the Mojave in the dirt with his finger, only for Chance to enhance it by digging the paths with his knife. After the group met with Benny and left for Goodsprings to set up the ambush against the courier, the map remained at the spot it was carved in, even a week later, seemingly unchanged by the wind. With some extra lore out of the way, I make my way into the canyon and go to the main building to talk to Papa Khan. I asked about their history and was told of Bitter Springs, which I'll keep in mind for later on in this run. Next, I went into Carl's room and stole his journal, detailing how Khans are barbaric and the Legion will have to slaughter many of them. I report to Papa that Caesar is using them, but he doesn't believe me yet, and I can't show him the journal for some reason since I haven't progressed the quest. So I leave the building, which triggers a conversation with Regis, which now allows me to show him the journal. After showing the journal, everyone unloads on Carl.
That filthy savages probably have to decimate the lot of them. Are these the words of our friend Caesar? Great Khans, drive Caesar's dog out of our camp. If he's too slow to flee, kill him. Hey!
Now, I need to convince the other important members to also oppose the Legion. So, I head over to the drug den and talk to Jack, and ask him to oppose Papa Khan. He doesn't care at the moment, so I talk to Diane and ask for some work, where she orders me to go find a runner named Anders. I fast travel down to Cottonwood Cove and find him hanging from a cross, and I let him down. Spin back on the Legion, I also head up to the cliffside, where a truck full of radioactive barrels can be released into the area. Unfortunately, I need a lockpick skill of 50 to dump the barrels, so I can't get any revenge for Anders. Anyway, moving back to Red Rock Canyon, I talk to Diane and get more work, and more importantly, get Jack and Diane to both oppose the alliance with Caesar. The next person I have to convince is located in Quarry Junction, so I try the back way behind Goodsprings, near Chance's grave, and attempt to run past all the death claws, which goes as expected. So I tried the normal route through the front and hugged the cliffside until I'm deep into Quarry Junction. At one point, I also had a close encounter with me having to jump on an excavator to get away. This excavator comes in clutch as all the death claws that become hostile towards me run away into a rock and get stuck within it. I make a run towards the middle to climb the crane, but the Alpha Deathclaw comes in at 100 miles an hour and one hits me. So I try a slightly different route, which gets me a bit closer until the Alpha finds me again. Finally, in one last attempt, I find a way up the cliffside, away from the Alpha, and get to the top layer of rocks away from all the Deathclaws. From here, I crouch and make my way towards the Khans, and finally talk to Melissa, who has a New Zealand accent in the middle of the United States for whatever reason, and tell her that woman can't serve in the Legion, ending her support of the Legion Alliance. I then am lucky to be able to fast travel out safely back to Goodsprings. I return back to Papa Khan, and he hears me out to not side of the Legion, but he needs to have some sort of legacy for his people. So he refers me to the followers of the Apocalypse for some inspiration for the tribe. I head over to the Old Mormon Fort to talk to Julie Farkas, who points me towards some history nerd named Ezekiel outside the 188 trading post. Discovering it earlier, I fast travel there and speak to Ezekiel and get a mouthful on the Mongolians. Finally, he gives me the book on the history of the Mongols, and I return back to Red Rock Canyon to give Papa the book. The book is a success and will be a symbol for the tribe to focus on. With this, I continue doing work for the Khans, and Diane assigns me a mission to deliver some drugs to the Motor Runner, who's in the heart of the Fiends. But before I leave, I head over to the Khan Armory and buy myself a combat knife to repair Chance's knife. I hold on to it for now and wait for my knife to break a little more before repairing it, so I start using it outside of the vault on all the Fiends. After cutting up a bunch of them, I make my way inside the vault and put myself in a bad situation. Unfortunately, there's no dialogue to tell them if the Khan's just doing a drug delivery, and in hindsight, I think I would have worn Khan armor, they would have let me go. But I do things the hard way and slice through all the Fiends until I finally meet the maintenance door, which requires a key. So, more Fiend slaughter for me. I go through the various levels of the vault, using Chance's knife very effectively, and even finding some more combat knives along the way to repair it. It also helps that I get a perk that knocks over my enemies with melee attacks, which means in 1v1s I almost always win. I finally make it to the very bottom of the vault and kill David for the maintenance key and the prisoner key, which I obviously used to free the prisoners. Now I cut my way through the last couple enemies to Motor Runner and finally get to speak to the man himself. He seems to be unbothered by the fact that the whole vault got cleared out, but I get out of there before he can really find that out. Of course, on the way out, there are even more fiends preventing me from fast traveling, so I sit at the vault door, making them push around the corner, allowing me to easily knife them. With all the fiends taken care of, I also deliver a package to the Crimson Caravan real fast, then return back to Red Rock Drug Lab. Turning in the quest, I become liked by the Great Khans, and I'm out of work from Diane, so I turn to Jack for any sort of more work. He requires new drug recipes, which needs 50 science, so I'll have to return back later to help out. Running out of activities to do here, I do find a dweeb named Jerry the Punk who writes poetry, which is absolutely awful.
You would? Really? Okay, well then, here goes. This is a poem I wrote about the dark loneliness that suffuses my soul. Rain clouds wrap my heart in sorrow black as silk. My empty scream does not echo. Even though we're in a canyon, my soul aches. But not as much as my limbs, because I've been beaten severely. That's it. What do you think? You liked it? Wow, you're the first one who ever did.
After hearing that garbage, I convince him to leave the cons, as he's an embarrassment to everything we stand for. Unfortunately, Jerry is too much of a bitch to leave until I figure out if the followers of the apocalypse will accept him. So he makes me take the journey all the way to Vegas and ask him to see if they'll accept a poet. I talk to Julie Farkas, and she lets me know that's okay for him to join, so I take the journey all the way back and tell him he's good to leave, though I doubt he'll even make it there alive. Anyway, I've run out of stuff to do in Red Rock, so I bring my attention back to the main story and return to the tops to talk to Yes Man. I talk to Yes Man real quick and get him to work for me and inform him that it's time to take over Mr. House's network. So we head over there and get ear raped from him transferring computers, and my reward for my bleeding ears is a level up. So I put it into finesse for even more critical hits with the knife. Now it was time to clean up any other factions for Yes Man, starting with the Omertas. I walk across the street to the casino and ask the receptionist about some information, and she points me towards a man named Cucino. I find him and pickpocket his evil journal of all evil things he likes to do and write down so people like me can exploit him. Troik will help me if I help him and get him out of his contract at the family. So I speak to Big Sal and buy out the contract for 300 caps. With him out of contract, he provides me with the rundown and where all the weapons are stored and gives me some thermite to destroy the weapons. So I went inside, placed all the thermite, and hit the flashbang button on the wall. After seeing heaven, I open the door to reveal that all the weapons are destroyed and gone. With this, I return to Cucino, and it's time to take out the big bosses. I push him up the stairs since he walks incredibly slow, and we step into the office. I sit down on the couch and talk to the bosses, and decide to tank the bullets. Unfortunately, they only shoot at me a little bit, and then take out Cucino instead. With no way to fight back, I reload the save and decide to get them to attack me by punching them and having them shoot me.
It's time for the meeting with the bosses. We can't chit-chat right now. Please. What was that for? You right?
This works for the most part until they stop shooting me and kill Cucino, with Nero being just at 1 health. So I run away and try to figure out a solution, but one of the guards ran up the stairs and killed Nero for me, so everything worked out in the end. Now it is time to talk to the tin cans down in Hidden Valley. I allow myself to get captured and talk to the elder and follow his instructions to take out the ranger in another bunker. I head inside, and the ranger was just getting some cardio or something because he was already running around everywhere, so I start flailing around Chance's knife and take him out with ease. I report back to the elder with good news that the ranger is gone. It's not as good as news to the elder because we don't know if he'll be found or not, but that's not really my problem. After doing this task, I'm allowed free reign of the bunker and start pickpocketing all the key cards to blow up the bunker. However, for whatever reason, the elder scribe is nowhere to be found who has the last key card, so I guess the Brotherhood get to live this time. Moving on, it's now time for the easiest faction of them all, the Boomers. I make my way to the front and talk to George, but I think he's becoming sentient because he starts to run away from me knowing that I'm going to kill him. Unfortunately, he isn't very smart and runs right into the bombardment. I swear this happens almost every other video. Anyway, I hug the cliffside and dodge the artillery and make my way to the gate. The boomers bring me to Grandma Pearl and she bakes me some cookies with milk. Unfortunately, she makes me work for it. Dude, this is written like crap, bro. The boomers bring me to Grandma Pearl, but instead of baking me cookies, she makes me work around the airfield. But before I get to work, I try on George's clothes, and I must say he has some very nice taste. Now, with the drip acquired, I head over to the medical building and heal 2 of the patients. I then make my way to the hangars and turn in all 35 of my scrap metal I've acquired through the run for instant idolization. I return back to Granny, and she tells me to speak to Loyal about a crashed bomber. I talk to him, and like always, call him a creep and make my way out to Lake Mead. I swim down and attach the 2 ballasts and swim back to the dock. At the dock, I pull out Loyal's detonator and activate the balloons, raising the bomber to the surface. I report back and ask the Gilf to support me in an upcoming fight, which he obviously agrees to. I report back to Yes Man about the boomers, and he compliments me, but then gives me some crazy sarcasm about the Brotherhood, giving me some mixed feelings.
That's 4 down. Okay, consider them forgotten, along with projections that predict they'll be our biggest enemy. Forgotten!
He then informs me that the president is coming to talk to the NCR troops, but since my reputation with the NCR is kind of cooked, I can't even come near him, so we let Destiny do its thing for the president. Now, I need to power some of the Securitron, so I head over to the Dorado substation and run in the middle of the night, power the substation. With this, I get a level up, which gives me 50 science, allowing me to return back to Red Rock Canyon and teach Jack some new drug recipes. Now with the main quest and Red Rock Canyon all complete, I do my own journey to act out some revenge on the NCR, so I head over to Bitter Springs right away by fast traveling to the dock where I raised the bomber and then heading north. I make it to Bitter Springs and pass by all the graves of the women and children who were slaughtered here and grab a con helmet for some extra protection. Using Chance's knife, I slash down all the NCR in the area and make sure to spare all the civilians. Bitter Springs cleared of NCR, I get ambitious and head over to Camp McCarran to take out the base. I do take out the front guard outside, and some caravan that gets pissed off at me as well, with the Brahmin being the final straw for the NCR, making me villainized. I do try and go inside and fight, but after dying over and over, I give up on that idea, as revenge will just come at the dam. So I return to Yes Man to start the dam fight. During the fight, I find a lot of combat knives, allowing for a full repair, and then I make my way into the inside and make my way to the control room and easily take care of the NCR guards as I send them to the ground instantly, allowing me to slice through their power armor somehow. I slice my way through some Legionnaires and make my way to the power switch, which activates the Securitron army. Now, returning to the surface, the boomers glitched out and I heard the plane sound effect with the explosions, although the attack already happened. Anyway, I make my way to the final camp and get into a long fight with all the soldiers of Power Fist, which are a hard counter to my knife. Finally make my way through them and meet the Legate, pop all my drugs, and take the fight. Also utilizing Turbo, which allows me to put in some serious work and get the Legate to the ground. Unfortunately, I die anyway, but I did pop a quick save right when he hit the ground, so I reload the save and knock him to the ground again and take out the Legate with ease. Now, I do the hard part, which is fighting the Power Fisters, which definitely proves to be a challenge. With everybody dead now, I make my way to the gate and talk to General Oliver and prepare him for his inevitable death. I instantly end the conversation and run around the corner and come back to finish the job. With this, I beat the game using only Chance's knife, except for that one part with the cattle prod, but that's between us. Nobody has to know. Anyway, if you made it this far, or maybe you fell asleep, thanks for watching, and thanks for 1,000 subscribers. And if you want to look cool out of those 1,000 subs, you can consider joining the channel. Anyway, like, subscribe, blah blah blah, YouTuber stuff, blah blah blah, and I'll see y'all in the next video.